Good afternoon, everyone. Today's hot topic is one I get asked a lot by both people that are coming in new and existing mom and pops. Why should you be a franchisee versus do it yourself? And I have 30 reasons. I specialize in doing top 10 lists, but this one I couldn't hold to less than 30. So I have 30 reasons that you should become a franchisee versus do it yourself mom and pop. But before I start, a couple of points. Number one is not every franchisor is a great opportunity and has the has the systems and the skill to do what I'm talking about. So this doesn't apply to every franchise brand. Fortunately, the brands that I've been involved in my career, starting at H&R Block and Jackson Hewitt and Liberty, and now all of our brands at Loyalty Brands, all of them are solid brands that offer all of these things I'm going to talk about. But you got to be careful. And the key to success in a franchise system is happy, successful franchisees. So the way to check whether it's a brand that's a good brand, a solid brand, a that does what a franchisor is supposed to do, is to make sure the franchisees are both happy and successful. I've seen some franchises and some brands that were happy even though they weren't successful. So make sure it's a good return on investment for both time and money. So when you acquire a franchise, you're one of my favorite phrases, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So let's go through the all of the reasons that, and I'll, if necessary, I'll come back and if I have an opportunity, expand on the most important ones. But overall, the important reason that many of these other 29s are covered under is a system of doing business. And to be successful in business, you have to have two things. You need customers, and then you have to have systems. And part of those systems, of course, is obtaining customers. So you get a system of doing business, and it's a franchisor has made all the mistakes that you can. A great franchisor has already made all the mistakes or seen all the mistakes. In my career, in tax, for example, I brought in over 5,000 franchisees, and they had partners and spouses and hundreds of thousands of employees. So I've either made every mistake or seen every mistake. So what we can do is save you years in development because you don't have to develop all the things we're gonna talk about. So next thing, one of the things you get when you get a franchise is you get franchisees, not just so you don't just get us as your partner customer, you get other franchisees, and there's camaraderie, there's support, there's shared marketing, and sometimes shared employees. So I'm in Chicago today, and when in our largest brands here, that in H&R Block, for example, there's 250 offices in the Chicagoland area, and they share employees, they share marketing, they share, and they support each other. They're available in emergencies to support each other. So you get a lot of people going in the same direction. Also, between the franchisees and ourselves, we've thought of virtually everything you can think of. If you think you can come into our franchise system, where I've been doing this 55 years, and you're going to invent something that not only I didn't think of, but my 5,000 franchisees have never thought of, that's just crazy. There are very few novel new ideas. Most everything is tried and true. So you don't acquire a franchise to be creative. You follow a franchise. Our job is to give you the best system in the industry. If we do our job, then we then your job is to follow that system. We develop the technology. We acquire technology that is uniform throughout the system and at a discount. So we are continually in all of our brands listening to our franchisees and modifying the technology to meet the current needs. The my opinion is that those that are closest to the customer are the ones that need to be listened to most. I know the big picture better than just about anyone, but I don't deal with customers. Our franchisees and their employees deal with customers. We need to have the technology that supports the franchisees in giving the customers, exceeding customers' expectation. Bulk purchasing. We have over 60 vendors in the loyalty brands family, and we get discounts at huge companies like ADP and Amazon and Staples. We have banking relationships. We have leasing relationships. We have over 60 vendors where not only do you get a discount, but if you have a problem, since we're buying some things by the dozens or hundreds or thousands, if you have a problem, it's going to carry more weight because you have us behind you. And that our account is important more than a one mom and pop. So if we're buying computers, for example, we have 400 franchisees, and we're adding 10 to 15 a month. So there's that computer vendor's looking at a huge sales and gives us special treatment. So bulk purchasing and better vendor relationship. Branding is so important in this country. People pay so much attention to brand that when people travel and there's a John's hamburger and a McDonald's, I mean, people automatically go to the brand name. And we as Americans think of somehow our innate gut feeling is that there's someone standing behind a McDonald's. There's some huge organization that is standing behind a McDonald's. If you go for Joe's Hamburger, then who knows the quality of that and who's standing behind that. The McDonald's didn't get to be by far number one in hamburgers. They're bigger than Wendy's and Burger King combined. They didn't get to be number one because they have the highest quality hamburger at the best price. They got there because of the branding that they've obtained by having consistency and standards and location, etc. When you sell your business, and most of us are going to sell, or if you're like me, they're going to have to kill me to stop me. The businesses are going to be sold someday, and franchisees get higher valuations on average than mom and pops. No one knows what happens if John Hewitt is a mom and pop and he leaves and he has a business and he leaves it and sells it. No one knows how many of the customers were loyal they came in just because of John Hewitt. If it says ATAX or Zoom and Grumman, they're coming in for ATAX or Zoom and Grumman. They're not, so you get a higher valuation. Not only do you get a higher valuation because it's the customers are loyal to the brand, but also there are more buyers. There are ready-made buyers. When a franchisee goes to sell, the first people they generally call are the other franchisees in the system, of course, especially the ones that are geographically nearby. And many of our brands over the years have been acquired by other franchisees who are looking to expand. It's often a lot easier to expand by acquiring an existing location, especially if it's been run the same way, that same system, same way, then it's more likely to be purchased by another franchisee. And then there are a good 20% of or 25% of the locations are bought by an employee of either an employee of that particular office because they understand the system and they appreciate the system, or an employee of another office. They're in my career, as I said, I brought in 5,200 franchisees who had hundreds of thousands of employees. Many of those hundreds and hundreds, and probably over 1,000 of them, the employees went on to start their own franchise, to join our system as a franchisee. And of course, one of the easiest way to start is to acquire a existing franchise rather than from starting from scratch. It's easier to acquire existing than starting from scratch. So that's not only do you get a higher price, but you have ready-made buyers. You have not only all the other franchise owners, but you have their employees, and even occasionally the corporate office might acquire the location. So you have ready-made buyers. Your succession plan. You have a succession plan. You have what we do when we train you as a franchisee. We don't train you in our national training. We don't train you to be to have a job. We don't teach you to be a tax preparer. We don't teach you to be a groomer in grooming. We don't teach you to get up on roofs and do roofing in our roofing company. We teach you to be CEO of your company. And there's really no CEO school in this country except for the School of Hard Knocks. And I've gone through the School of Hard Knocks. I've been a CEO since 1982. So on August 14th, it'll be 42 years I've been a CEO. And boy, did I have a lot of hard knocks and a lot of lessons learned over the years. The beauty is I didn't have me to help me. You have me and my team. And the reason we call it Loyalty Brands is we have dozens of people with over 20 or 25 years experience working with us. And so they've gone through those lessons learned, and you're going to get CEO training that is it's priceless. When you our advertising is lower cost because we're getting more bulk purchasing. So whether it's purchasing a word online, or whether it's a radio ad or TV or direct mail, or we have the lowest cost in our industry for customer acquisition. It costs us less than our competitors to acquire new customers. We're the best in each of our industry, and some of that is that our skill and our experience, and some of that is just bulk purchasing. And when again, I'm in Chicago today, and if there's 250 H&R Block offices and they're all advertising in the Chicago market, think about the cost to buy a keyword online. It's split over 250. Or if you do a radio or a TV or newspaper, it's split over 250 offices. So it's bulk purchasing creates, and skill both give us better lower costs for advertising than our competitors. You get operational support, industry experience. So we're going to give you guidance every step of the way, from the day you open until the day you leave. You're going to get industry experience and guidance. And the guidance is especially for yourself. It's specifically for your situation. A lot of times people say to me, well, when should I open my second office? Or in Zoom and Grooming, when should I get my second van? And my answer is, I could give you a generic answer, and it would be right 80% of the time or 90% of the time. But you have even better than that. You have us that will give you specific advice on your situation. So when you think it's time to acquire your second van or acquire your second office or acquire another territory, then come to us and ask us, and we will give you exact guidance for your situation. And everyone's situation is unique, and their skill sets are unique. And so again, I could tell you generically, but we're going to give you specific guidance as to when it's time to expand and when it's not when it's not a good time to expand. So we're going to take you through that process to make sure that you get it right. And I spend most of my time telling people not to expand rather than, I never go to someone and say, "Oh, it's Stephen, it's time you need to expand." I generally have questions for someone. How large do you want to be in 5 years, 3 years, so forth? But I spend much of my time telling people that no, you're not quite yet ready to expand. And people ask questions like, my this has been asked me many times over the years, that my spouse hates their job, and am I big enough for my spouse to quit their job and join me in our business, in our franchise? And so that, again, that's case by case. How much money was the spouse needing to be replaced, and so forth? And how big do you want to get to be, and et cetera. So we're going to give you exact advice for your situation. And of course, it's not me. I have dozens and dozens of people that have been with me, as I said, for 20, 25, some 30, over 30 years. So you're going to get our advice as to what and when to expand, when to um, develop your business, and how to grow it for your exact situation. We have technical support, and our technical support is open 52 weeks a year. And you are, when you have a computer or a phone or a device, it's not a question of if it breaks or if something is difficult to understand or impossible to understand. It's a question of when. And while we give you an operating manual and informational documents, it seems to me that it's anti-American to read instructions. So people have to pick up the phone and call. So we give you technical support that covers both the hardware and the software. In our marketing support, we give people individual plans, and we develop the collateral for you. If you're a mom and pop, what message do you have, and what colors do you use in your marketing message, and what is the timing? Do you send it on do you do it on a Monday afternoon, a Tuesday morning, Sunday evening? I mean, what's the timing, and where do you put it? If you're advertising on the radio, what station? There's typically dozens of stations to choose between. And there's all kinds of, and do you do TV, or do you do radio, or do you do direct mail, or do you do online? What percentage should you spend in each? As a mom and pop, you have to experiment and experiment and experiment to arrive at the right answer. You could have, especially in a seasonal business, you could have all of your advertising not work and lose a season because you didn't have your advertising in the right place, the right location, with the right message. There in taxes, for example, there are two kinds of customers that come in before February 15th, and they want their money and they want it yesterday. They want their refund. And the people that don't care about a refund or even get a refund, they come in and pay a preparer because they have complexity, or their lives have changed. They bought a home, they bought a business, they sold a business, they sold capital gains, something changed in their life, and that drives them in. And they don't care how quickly their tax return is filed, because they don't care about that refund or some don't even have a refund. And so they wait until April to file their tax return and pay their tax. So, but if you're advertising early in the season when people just want their refund and they want it fast, and you say, we're the most thorough, accurate, professional, they don't care. They expect that. They expect you to be thorough and accurate. And I don't know anyone that goes into a tax preparer expecting not to have an accurate tax return done. And that's expected, but they're just paying attention to who can get me my money the fastest. So before February 15th, that's the number one message. But then after February 15th, if you say, I can get your money in 1 minute, 1 hour, they don't care. That's they have deaf ears to that. That goes right by them. You have to talk about being thorough, digging for deductions, giving advice, giving recommendations, and making sure that you pay the lowest tax. That's what people have. So you have to have the right message at different times during the tax season. And and if you're on radio, it has to be a different kind of. If the people that want their money fast tend to be younger, and they tend to be lower income, and so you have to be on the radio stations that focus on younger, lower income taxpayers. And in the later season, when they have complexities, they tend to be older. So you need to advertise the right message on radio stations that are for the older crowd. And so the marketing is incredibly important. That's one of the major reasons you should consider joining us, is because we're skilled in doing that. Finding locations, location. Locations are key in many of our industries, many of our businesses. And typically of course, I've been in tax for 55 years, so I tend to use that example. But again, in Chicago, those 250 locations, one of them is best, and then there's second best, and then there's 250 at best. If you're looking at our organization, you're ground floor. So you could be in the best territory in all of Chicago, or you could be in the worst territory in all of this market. Which would you rather be in? Would you rather compete against the McDonald's that does 7 million of revenue, or one that does 2 million of revenue? Would you rather compete against an H&R Block that does 600,000 of revenue, or one that does 250,000 of revenue? The opportunity is often defined by our competitors. And we analyze our competitors and that give you the analysis of where you should open. Many times we can help you purchase a building. There are times when you want to acquire a building. It's you have a location, you have a landlord, or an opportunity to acquire a building. We can help you acquire the building, and that gives you a competitive advantage, because in most industries, the franchisors are not, certainly not, if not most, many industries, the franchisor aren't into building acquisition. And so we can help you with the negotiations, with the purchase, and sometimes we can even buy it and lease it to you. And think about in taxes again, what happens if there's a freestanding competitor? There's an H&R Block or a Jackson Hewitt sitting there in a building that's for sale. You can lease that building and eventually put your ATAX in that building. So it's a competitive advantage to be able to have us help you acquire buildings, and in certain situations. We offer, not only do we offer financing, we don't particularly, that's not our desire to offer financing, but we have, as I said earlier, we have banking relationships and leasing relationships. So out of our well over 100 franchisees at Zoom and Grumman, 90% of them have leased a van from one of our leasing companies. And many of our franchisees, of the 5,200 franchisees that come in, have got funding from a bank. And We have SBA banks, we have non-SBA banks, and we have everything in between. So we have vendors that can provide you access to financing. The when I was at Liberty, we had a $225 million line of credit, and it's difficult in the tax industry to get seasonal funding. The banks just aren't experienced in seasonal funding, and in tax preparation, there's no hard assets. There's no trucks or vans or machinery, and so there's just a customer base, and so it's always been difficult to get funding for franchisees in tax. But so as a matter of fact, we lent we had a $225 million line of credit each, and we borrowed that. Most of the money was borrowed from November to January, and it was all paid back in March. But almost half of it was used to lend to franchisees just to help them get from November until they started to have revenue in February and March from being paid when their customers came in. So that's a competitive advantage that you don't have if you're by yourself. Emergency backup. And you don't like to think that you're going to have emergency, but we've had people that died. We've had people that 2 years ago, we had a franchisee that had a stroke and went into a coma in January for the rest of the tax season. We're here to help in case of emergency. Who's your backup? Who's going to take over the office and ensure that your business isn't interrupted? Over the years, I've got into at least 100 situations where there was some disaster in the franchise. It could have been their spouse, their child, themselves, their mother, father. They went into some emergency mode, and we sent people in. We have people ready to step in an emergency to ensure that your business is going to stay up and running. Because every time you lose a customer during the tax season, they're probably going to go somewhere else and file, and you've lost them for a whole year, if not forever, and because they may go back to that company forever. So emergency backup. Who's your emergency backup? This could be the single most, besides the system, possibly the single most important financial gain that you get by being part of a brand name franchise national system is customers changing offices. In large organizations like national brands that cover the whole country, this is less so if you only cover 70% of the country, then it's only 70% of this, or 50% of the country, it's 50% of this. But at large organizations like McDonald's and H&R Block, 10 to 15% of their customers change the location they went to. So you're going to get a big percentage of your business that could easily pay for your entire cost royalty based on customers that are just looking for if they're happy at an A tax, then, and they move across the city, across the state, across the country, they're looking for another A tax. If they're Joe's Tax Service and has one location in Chicago and they move to Milwaukee, then their chances are 9 out of 10, 95 out of 100, they're going to look for a different alternative. But if they're happy with A tax, they're going to look for an A tax in Milwaukee. And that's the same with grooming. I was talking to my owner of our Zoom and Grooming in Memphis last month, and she said 2 customers who had their grooms done in Virginia Beach moved to Memphis, and they were being groomed there. And not only are you going to get, so that's one thing, is you're going to get customers that are going to pay for themselves, but also you're going to get employees. we had our first friend. We brought our first Zoom and Grooming franchise in August 18th of 2021, and our first groomer moved somewhere. I think it was Connecticut just last month. So after almost 3 years, they moved to Connecticut, and guess where they went to work? They went to work for Zoom and Grooming Connecticut. And so you're going to get employees that change office. You're going to get customers that change office. And think about referrals. If you do a good job at grooming a dog, and the customer is very happy, they're going to tell other people. Now, not everyone they tell lives in your area. They might, we might do a great job grooming in Chicago, and they have a best friend or a sibling or a parent that lives in Los Angeles. And they say, wow, I just had a great job done at Zoom and Grooming. And if you're a mom and pop, you've lost that customer because if you're Ann's Grooming, then mobile grooming, you've lost that customer. But if you're Zoom and Grooming, they can go get a groom from the referred across the country, across the city, or across the state. So you get referrals, employees, and customers. You get ongoing training. You don't learn everything in 1 year. After 55 years, I'm still learning. And I can tell you lessons, and I've talked about over the last few months in this webinar. I've talked about lessons I learned just 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, last week. So you need to be in a constant learning mode, and we're going to give you training that merits where you are in your career, right? So it's intermediate, advanced, Top Gun. It depends on we'll give you individual training. My philosophy is I'll train you until you're blue in the face, and so it could be individual training. If you said to us, I'm really a bad delegator. I really need some intense training in how to delegate. Well, as long as you give us 2 weeks notice, you can come to Virginia Beach and we will train you on whatever you need on whatever you need in business, whatever you feel your weakness is. But often at those trainings, the best interactions are other franchisees. In the franchise world, it's sort of like children and parents. When other children get together, they listen to each other more than their parents. That's same is true in franchise situations. Even though I've been doing this longer than virtually any human being at my age, when I'm in talking to a group of franchisees, they tend to give extra credibility to themselves versus myself, which is, to me, it was somewhat ridiculous, but I've seen it happen forever and understand that. And so during the trainings, you're going to mingle and rub shoulders with other people going in the same direction, with camaraderie and giving you their experience. Some people like myself, best way to learn is example. I learned by give me an example of what you're talking about. Then I can understand it better. And that's what happens at the trainings. You're with other great franchisees, all going in the same direction, all motivated to win as a team and as a group. And when one franchisee succeeds, then that helps everyone else and in the system succeed. So it's a leg up to everyone in the system to see others succeed. And we've gotten so much publicity over the years from, that's again the benefit of being part of a national chain. We've been in the Wall Street Journal. One year we had 1/6 of the front page of the Wall Street Journal. I've been in the Wall Street Journal 50 times. There used to be a tax section every Wednesday on the front page, and I was in that dozens and dozens of times. I've been on every national ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox. I mean, I've been on virtually every major channel interviewed nationally, and so have others in our organization. And again, if one of those, if a office in Chicago gets a article in the paper, then it benefits every single franchise in Chicago. And every single newspaper, radio, or television station is going to do an article on taxes. That's one of the great things about taxes, the certainty, death, and tax and change. But everyone's going to do an article during the tax season. And if you're a national name, you're like much, much more likely to be called on than if you're a mom and pop. So you're going to get publicity, and publicity drives in customers. Convention. We have a great convention every year. It's typically the first weekend in June in Virginia Beach, and I'll tell you, I love Virginia Beach. Been there 42 years, and it's typically great weather. It's the tourists aren't there quite yet. They come a couple weeks later, typically, and so it's not real crowded. And the weather tends. We've been blessed and had great weather virtually every year for my entire career. And it's mingling, and it's not just mingling with our platform company. It's not just mingling with other franchisees in one brand. All of the brands come together. So you get to meet with the roofing company, you get to meet with the accounting, with the business brokers, with the tax, with inspection boys, the home inspection. You get to meet with all of the other brands and mingle and have cross-marketing opportunities and opportunities to help each other in various markets around the country. But it's a good time, and it's a learning time. It's where every year, we sit and listen to our franchisees and say, tell us how to improve. And I myself go up in front of all the franchisees, and we break into groups. And I'll go up in front of 50 or 100 franchisees at a time and say, tell us how to improve. And we write every idea down. And that's one of our biggest vehicles to improve, is listening to franchisees. And I've been doing that for over 30 years. And I'm proud to say that each year, those advice that we get from our franchisees are able to be implemented that year. The changes that they've asked for are being able to made that year. So more than half every year. So it's a great time and a great camaraderie. One of the things that I do and we do as franchisors is we take the pulse of the industry. If you're a mom and pop with one office in Chicago, and how do you know what's going on in the world of the IRS and legislation and technology, AI? You don't have the time, or even if you did, and let's say that we have 200 locations in Chicago. 200 mom and pops have to have the pulse of the industry. Well, they don't, but they have to do it 200 times. We do it once. And share it with you and share it. And you get the vision and pulse of the industry that we do for you that benefits you. So we're watching not only every one of our own franchisees, we're watching our competitors. And in a franchise system, for example, my last company at Liberty, we had 4,000 locations. That's 4,000 offices that are watching H&R Block and Jackson Hewitt. And so if they see something happening in our competitors that works, heaven forbid, because there's almost nothing they've done over the last 50 years that works well. But when they do, then they report it. And then everyone in the system knows immediately. So if we see them coming up with a special promotion, then we quickly alert our franchisees that this is happening and this is how to respond. Usually, again, it's been fortunate in tax that they haven't been great competition, so they haven't come up with much that's effective. But when they do come up with things that are effective, then we have either we're going to replicate it, or we're going to say, don't worry about it because of this. We've watched it, we've tried it, and it doesn't work. And I'll tell you one thing that I learned about 6 or 7 years ago, that we have a special promotion just in March, and when it's slow, and for a part of March when it's particularly slow, we had a promotion that I had invented back when I was at Jackson Hewitt back in 40 years ago, and it's 50% off of what you paid your competitor, what you paid your preparer last year. So this is for new customers only, by appointment only. Is 50% of what you paid your customer last year. Well, we had done that for decades, and it really ended up being a higher average fee than normal customers, because the people that were utilizing that were the people that have been going to CPAs and paying $600, $800, $1,000. It wasn't the people that were paying $150 at a mom and pop. It was the larger returns were the ones that were coming in. So it was effective. Well, one year, about, I don't remember exactly how many years ago, so 7 or 8 years ago, at Liberty, we saw Jackson Hewitt change the promotion. Instead of 50% off, like we were offering, they offered $100 off. And come to find out, a dollar amount off works better than a percentage. So since then, I've been recommending that you say $100 off or $50 off rather than a percentage. It seems Americans, especially now that we're a computerized country and we don't teach math skills like we used to, a percentage isn't as effective as a raw dollar amount. So we learned that from the competitor and saw how effective it was, and changed our system. And we quickly changed everyone in the country. And we said, this is what's working. We saw our competitor do it. We tested it for you. And that's one of the things you get is our research and development. We never roll out anything. I learned a long time ago, it's a mistake to roll out something on a national basis. Made that mistake one or two times too many. So if we think something's going to work, or we see something that appears to be working, the first thing we do is test it in a small area. And then once it's working, our job as a franchisor is to only give you what works, not our theory of what could work. What our job is to give you best practices. And we do that through constant research and development. So we're constantly doing that. And again, we're doing that in dozens of cases in a large chain. Whereas if you're a mom and pop, you're not going to test too many things each year or each month. So you're only going to have the benefit of your own experience, where we have the benefit of hundreds and hundreds of offices and experience. So that's what you get when you get part of a franchise. We have a public relations team, and we're constantly sending out public relations articles and information to the press and to the community to get your name in front of the TV, radio, newspaper at exactly the right time. Magazines, we're in Entrepreneur Magazine, Inc. Magazine, Franchising Times, Wall Street Journal. I mean, we're constantly, not only are we doing it nationally, but we provide you the collateral to do it locally. You just fill in the blank, and here's a press release you can send in. So you get your second van, grand opening. You open an office, grand opening. Every office needs a grand opening with a press release. And we provide that for you. You don't have to invent it. We provide that for you. We're giving you constant reminders, and you get constant reminders during the tax season. we're on the phone twice a week. I don't know any other franchisor, but your franchisor should be giving you constant reminders of things that are happening right now that you can take advantage of. Okay, this is you have an Easter special, you have a Valentine's special, and you plan it in advance, right? So 3 weeks before Valentine's, you have a Valentine's promotion, and we're recommending it to you in advance, and then reminding you as we come closer and closer. And so constant reminders is an important attribute of being part of a franchise system. You can't forget anything. You can't forget, because we're almost to we're almost to the extent that we give you too much direction. We give you constant direction, and because you can't miss out on opportunity. Once you've lost a customer, if you lose a customer in a McDonald's this afternoon, they could come back tonight. If you lose a grooming customer, they could come back in 4 to 6 weeks or 8 weeks when their pet needs grooming again. If you lose a tax customer, they're going to not come back for a year. So every missed opportunity is exacerbated if you miss the opportunity, and some of them will never come back. They'll go to a competitor. If you had the chance and there was a special promotion that you should have on Valentine's Day, and you didn't run it, and you missed out on one customer. Well, the average life of a customer is 7 years, and the average fee in I'll just look at Block as the bellwether. Their average fee nationally is about $260, and they're going to come back 7 times. You lost $1,800 if you didn't get the right message on February 14th. You lost $1,800 of future revenue per every customer that you miss. So constant reminders important. We analyze your budget and your P&L. We look at all the P&Ls and profit and loss and say, this is what the average rent is in our system. So this is the amount of percentage of your revenue you can afford to pay in rent. This is the percentage of payroll. Payrolls, I mean, the key to everything in virtually every industry. And you should be looking at three numbers every day to decide how you're doing. And one of those numbers is payroll. You need to know the payroll each and every day. And payroll, you need to gross income and payroll in virtually every industry. And we're going to give you guidance, because not only can your payroll be too high, and that's a huge disease that you can go from extremely profitable to losing money because you have too much payroll. Then, but you could have too little payroll, and that shows that you're losing customers. If I see someone with low payroll, I don't need to go into their office. I can tell from sitting in my office in Virginia Beach if their payroll's too low, that they have customers that are sitting there waiting in their office. And my philosophy, at least in the tax business, is that if a customer waits 15 minutes, you've lost a customer. And either someone's going to come look in the door and not come in because you're too crowded, or that person's not going to be satisfied. You're not going to exceed their expectations. You're going to have disappointed them, so they're not going to come back, or they're not going to refer. So you can't have customers waiting for every time you have a customer waiting more than 15 minutes, in my general philosophy, is you lost a customer. And so your payroll can be too low. And part of that, then now payroll in the United States today, since COVID, there's been a dramatic change in employment, and virtually every industry is suffering. So one of the things you get, at least in our systems, is with all the people that I personally brought in over the years, then you have access to people in every city of more than 25 or 30,000 people in this country. You have access to someone that worked with me at Jackson Hewitt or Liberty or one of our existing franchises today. And you're going to have access to more people because they know the loyalty that the type of person that I am and we are. And so you're going to have access to more people. So you're not as likely to be understaffed. And our training programs teach you how to find people at exactly the right time and how to find people, how to train people, and when to do that. And so you get exact guidance on that. You get access to all the people in our other offices. Sometimes when we have a franchisee, if we had 200 offices in Chicago, and we'd have probably 30 or 40 that would be understaffed. And we'll go to some of the, we'll go on your behalf to the other franchisees and say, do you have anyone that would like to get some more hours? Now that's good for both because, for example, I was in Michigan, and they had a groomer that was only getting 2 hours for one franchise, 2 days a week from one franchise, but she wanted to work 4 days a week. So the neighboring franchise gave her 2 days. So she got her 4 hours, and both of those franchisees had a happy employee that they might have lost because they needed 4 days a week, and they were only able to give them 2 days a week. So you're going to get more employees and high qualified employees, and our employees tend to be we have great reputation. So many of our new groomers, for example, come because someone let PetSmart comes into Zuma Grooming and they're happy, and they go back to their friends who worked at PetSmart and said, wow, this is really great. And so they follow them. This is rare, but in a couple of cities, I was talking to franchisees last week, in a couple of cities, they have waiting lists where they're have groomers that want to come and work for them, and they're not ready. Contracts for employees, contracts for vendors. We have standard contracts for employees, and so when you hire someone in the tax industry, what kind of contract do you give them, and what kind of non-compete do you give them, and how much do you pay them, and et cetera, et cetera. And we give you all that. We give you all of the contracts and the how much you should charge per return in your city. It's different in not only is it different in Chicago than in Detroit, but if you're in a suburb of Chicago like Aurora, it's different than if you're in the Loop downtown or in the northern suburbs. I mean, every territory has their own fees that are related to the competition. And we learned a long time ago, I did, that you have to beat your competitor in price or service. You don't need to beat them in both. You have to beat them in price or service. And so we give you the pricing, we give you the contracts, what to pay the employees, and what kind of non-compete they sign. And I mean, we have that drafted for you, fill in the blanks, and here's the system. We have model locations where we test things, and we have that are replicable. And so you can see how to set up where to put the receptionist desk, where to put the taxpayer desk, how much space to put between the desks, and how much lighting and so forth, what the colors of the office should be, what the colors of the sign should be. So all of that is laid out for you in minute detail, and we give you guidance as to every step. Everything you need to run your organization is provided by us. If you say to me, do you provide? The answer is yes. Whatever franchisees need in general, not specifically, right? Let's say that you had an office that was on the 17th floor of an office building in New York because there's nothing available on the ground. Well, that's one office in the country. We don't have We don't have systems for one-offs, unique things. We have systems that cover hundreds and thousands and dozens of locations and dozens of examples. That's what we're best at, is providing a system of doing business. That's the key thing you get. So final words, it's way better to start as a franchise, but only if it's a great franchise. There are hundreds of franchisors that go out of business every year, so you got to be careful. Then when you build a business, it requires two things. It requires time and money. And time is the only irreplaceable resource. You will save years and years and months of time if you join a system of doing business. So if you want to grow and you don't want to be limited, I see most mom and pops, 90% of mom and pops fail, actually. The statistics are by the Small Business Administration that 5 years ago, of all the businesses started in the United States, 95%, 19 out of 20 are gone. But 19 out of 20 that started with a franchise system are still in business. So it's a vast difference in level of performance based on whether you're a franchisee or do-it-yourself mom and pop. But save time, build a lot faster, and build bigger. If you're a mom and pop and you're happy doing 300 tax returns and revenue of $100,000, if you're happy with that, you don't need a system. But if you want to be all you can be, then if you want to have multiple locations or have a larger office than in the tax business, the H&R Block across the street, then you need our systems, you need our advice, you need our support. And that's what I've been doing for 55 years. So again, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.